Digital is the way forward, a phrase commonly used by leaders today. However, to realize this, how good we are at our data management game and the adoption of cutting edge technologies like Gen AI is what we need to look at. In this episode, I have with me Dr. Subi Chaturvedi, Senior Vice President at InMobi, who to share her vantage points on India AI mission and how prepared are we to adopt newer technologies not only to build our efficiencies and capacities, but also to enhance consumer experience. The discussions will also look at InMobi's perspective on digital transformation journey of the government and public sector organizations and some of the key focus areas for InMobi in the times ahead. Hi, I'm Adarsh Som from ETGovernment and you're watching a public sector leadership series. Hi Shubi, welcome to our public sector leadership series. So first thing that I want to know is, today everybody is racing, in the AI race, everybody wants to adopt AI solutions. So how will that impact our processes, our engagements and consumer behaviors? How do you see that transition happening?
Hi Adarsh, thank you so much for having me on the Public Sector Leadership Series. I lead global tech and policy for InMobi, which is India's first unicorn. And for us, this is at the heart of, it's like watching a Formula One race and making sure that you're creating the best engines. It's very important to understand that this is not just a race. This is being called the biggest disruption that has happened since time immemorial. It's being compared with the fourth industrial revolution, with the invention of the wheel as well as the printing press. It's going to have incremental impact, especially for developing countries and emerging economies. You have to understand that not every country is at the same journey when it comes to technology. But for us, what is very, very important is the way Indians work. You give them a piece of technology, then you don't need to show them how to use it. I'm reminded of this wonderful story by Dr. Ajay Kumar, who's retired as the Defense Secretary. And he told us when the tsunami happened, they gave some Indian fishermen a GPS to trace their way back safely, back to the shore. And they figured out that they could use the GPS to mark coordinates for where the maximum catch of fish was. This is a very, very interesting learning that you give Indians a piece of technology, they'll figure out multiple use cases. So while the world is racing towards developing foundational models, a lot has happened. The Prime Minister has just come back from the US. He was addressing the joint summit in Paris. We were the co-chairs along with France. There are 2 or 3 things which are happening, Adarsh, which we need to track and where we need to make sure that we're on top of things. One, it is changing because of the current geopolitics. It is changing relationships. It is changing partnerships between countries. And therefore, countries like the US are looking for democratic allies who like manufacturing, where they've created the green corridors for trusted technologies in hardware. They're also looking at creating trusted technologies and deep partnerships in emerging technologies because AI is going to be all pervasive. If you look at some numbers, it's going to be over 500 billion US dollars. The numbers are going to surpass India and China's combined GDP in terms of the impact that it's going to create. So both in terms of consumer behavior, from looking at making choices, from looking at decisioning, from giving back consumers time by way of convenience, from making sure that you are enabling people. It's, I'm reminded of the scene from the Three Idiots where they talk about how do you understand a machine. It's supposed to minimize effort so that you get outputs faster. So where it is still lacking, and that's where they're saying DeepSeek is an improvement. The R1 model is an improvement over ChatGPT and the other previous models and competitors in cognitive abilities and creative thinking. So that's where AI is still catching up, but the speed of change is very, very rapid. India has ordered 18,000 GPUs. We've had an India AI mission, which was announced 2 years ago. They have over 10,400 crores earmarked in the budget. We already have centers of excellence in agriculture, in sustainability. In this budget last month, the Honorable Finance Minister announced another center of excellence, and that is going to focus on education. So if you look at the pieces of the puzzle, there's the infrastructure layer, which talks about chips. That's the NVIDIA NVIDIA and AMDs of the world. Then if you look at the LLMs, the large language models, which is the Gen AI, and that tends to take over most of the conversation. But if you look at the application layer, that's where companies like InMobi and our second unicorn Glance, it's revolutionizing how you use the smartphone. It is changing by the use of artificial intelligence, how startups can compete with large legacy brands and how we're making successfully in India for the world. So both in predictive analysis, in consumer behavior, in ensuring that we're making sure you're getting your output the fastest at the minimum amount of time, in training your devices to engage better with how you would want them to respond. Glance has innovated, creating, let's say, the smart AI phone, building out of India, putting the smart back in the smartphone, and using artificial intelligence to look at both in terms of shopping, e-commerce, news, information, infotainment. This is all being done from India. So not just are we changing consumers, not just are we ensuring that you have a better experience with the internet, we are also empowering governments in many, many ways. And I'm sure we'll talk about that later in the session.
Yeah, Subi, firstly, that was an interesting anecdote which you shared. Secondly, you very well mentioned that AI is pervasive, right? And we have come a long way when it comes to AI developments, AI tools, and there's still a lot of scope, right? We still need to develop those models. We still need to train them, especially when it comes to personalized data. Because let's say if today we are in India, we talk to our AI bot and we ask them about, let's say, give me a picture of an Indian man, and the AI might probably give you a picture of a person who is poor, dark skinned, right, and might not have that clothes on the body. So that kind of shows that the data that's being fed to the models these days that we have is not that effective and relevant. And at some point of time, every country needs to upscale their game and then feed their AI models, develop in-house, and then come up with the solutions which are more relevant and more effective in this sense. Now, moving ahead with my next question, what I want to know is, since you've been working with the government sectors, you've been working with the public sector as well. So when it comes to adoption of, cutting edge technologies, what kind of challenges have you seen, have you witnessed, these organizations are facing when it comes to the adoption? And how has InMobi trying to, normalize the challenges, or let's say neutralize the challenges?
Adarsh, it's a very important and a very relevant question. So first we have to see, do we need to reinvent the wheel in the process? Let me explain what does artificial intelligence really mean and what is generative AI, which is what a lot of consumers are engaging with. One, it is not a new phenomena. Alan Turing during the 70s itself had large language models when they interface with machine learning, and when you have the possibility of rich quality data sets with power to compute. So supercomputers, and India is really good at frugal innovation. So we created the Param computer. We've sent the Mars mission at a cost which is equivalent of a very large Hollywood production. So that's how India knows how to cut down on costs. And when we are looking at technological interactions, so one is generative AI. Second is there are now models which have made sure that A, you can host them on local servers, B, you can customize the output that you are taking. So the paper that has been recently published, it's created a template which allows Indian and it allows researchers from across the world to deconstruct the model to make it their own. So A, the infrastructure barrier, which is the very high cost of compute chips, and also certain countries were putting sanctions that those chips cannot be taken out. Now all of that changes because there is an example where it has been made possible. And our minister, Shri Ashwini Vaishnav, who's also a technocrat and has a degree from UPenn, he himself has said that India is committed and we're on our way to building our own. So one is the questions of sovereignty. In the world of technology, where there are plug-and-play models available, where you want to keep the internet universal and open, I believe that we should take what we can and then build upon it. So can we customize it? Can we localize it? As far as you talked about what is the imagery that somebody will throw up, there are biases. There will always be biases because how these models work is they scrape a lot of data of the internet, and that is what they're training their models on. And therefore, there are issues around copyright. There are questions on who owns the outcome. So DeepSeek has very clearly said that if you use that platform to create anything, they will be the owners. So copyright, IP, all of those questions also that need to be engaged with. And the government recently put out a diktat saying both these models, whether it's ChatGPT or R1, they are not going to be used by any sensitive organizations. So the finance ministry put out that notification, and very rightly so. We want to make sure that our data and our output are protected. Now, when it comes to the PSUs, what is wonderful is since 2014, you've seen policy paralysis no longer exists. This is a government that understands technology. They love technology. They like adopting technology. So every ministry that you go, and I travel a lot, I engage at least with 15 ministries and several states. There is a great hunger, there is keenness, there's curiosity, and that leadership is flowing right from the top. So normally where you would see a lot of resistance to change, that itself has changed. So I think that's one of the biggest roadblock that's gone. And, I'm very happy to share, I was recently invited by the Uttar Pradesh government, their Minister of Parliamentary Affairs as well as Finance, Suresh Khanna ji, asked me to address all the 272 elected MLAs, and we took a half day, almost a half day session where we walked these policymakers and legislators on what is it that you can do using artificial intelligence across their ministries. So impactful case studies which were simple to understand, which helped us help them, help us in turn. Building capacity has to come from the industry. This is a partnership that will work really beautifully with stakeholders who are multi-stakeholder, where private sector collaborates with academia, powers research. We are in turn working with government bureaucrats, departments, ministries, saying how do we leverage AI to cut down on menial tasks or tasks which sap away 4 days of coding for creating a green frame. So if AI can help you do that faster, if AI can add accountability in the system, if AI can make it better in terms of connecting the government with the citizens. So minimum government, maximum governance, and maximum output and productivity for the common citizen at hand. And that is why they came into power. So across agriculture, across manufacturing, across MSMEs, across IoT and connected devices, remedial education, which was a phenomenal revolution. We had some very, very interesting questions. So as InMobi, not only are we upskilling and empowering policymakers, we did a similar session for the Chief Minister's office where we engaged with all the principal secretaries, cutting across ministries. They came up with problem statements and we were able to showcase how customizing solutions. So it's not just Gen AI. AI has to be understood in a larger context. So the SCOST University, which is in Kashmir, and I serve on the higher education body that's been constituted in Kashmir a year ago, where we are upskilling and we're changing and creating a bridge program across university syllabuses. So SCOST University has just started a program in agriculture, IoT, where they're deploying sensors to look at artificial intelligence-based data, patterns across cropping, genetical hybridized models, plants, and how do they enhance productivity? How do they make sure that they're tracing very large scale models across temperature? So agriculture still in India. Now hydroponics is in its nascent stage. We have another app called One Weather that is curating data and working with Mission Mosam, the government of India, where they're looking at how can One Weather help in predictive analysis, because we are primarily still agrarian as a country, and it's very, very heartrending when you end up losing crops or when you suddenly get flash floods. So tracing those movements of patterns of temperature, climate change, and helping build analysis, can we do that in terms of predictability? So that is why, Adarsh, I think it's a fantastic time to be in India, both across the government, across ministries, across smaller departments as well as states. There is no door from which we've been turned away. And we come with a very honest approach that we are India's first unicorn. We are building from India for the world. And our success is dependent upon how we take everyone along. So I think in borrowing from the Prime Minister's words, it's truly a Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas moment that we're seeing. But what one would like to see is, let's say, timelines which are shorter, decision-making processes which help them procure and create a singular network which allows different government ministries to talk to each other so that they're on a common network. And the recent successful example that we've seen is we're working with Youth Ministry's My Bharat project, and they're working with I4C, which is under the Home Ministry. So we ran 2 amazing campaigns which have over 40 billion impressions on digital arrests. I was across all media channels explaining why digital arrests is unconstitutional, it's illegal, it does not even exist in our constitution. So as we bring people online, it is equally our responsibility, starting from the most basic technologies to technologies which are high-end. How do you make sure you're upskilling people and how do you build capacity? So that sensitization, till the time all 4 of us, which is media, academia, civil society, government, intergovernmental organizations and private sector, till the time we're doing our part, I think we are going to win this, we are going to succeed, and therefore I'm really happy that ET's put together this series.
So thanks, Subi. That was a wonderful answer, and the way you highlighted the way how upskilling is very much needed in the country today, especially when we are adopting complex technologies like AI. But I would like to underline the statement when you said that India is very good at coming up with frugal technologies and frugal innovations. But I think apart from coming up with frugal innovations, we are also very good at coming up with, or let's say, innovating on the second position. I think, be it the Mars mission, be it other major technologies, be it AI, there's always someone else who has done it before. Maybe they would have spent a lot of money, but we are the ones who are doing it afterwards in a more efficient way, or in a more frugal manner, as you just mentioned. Now, when you say that the government, that the resistance to change has already changed, and the government today is very proactive in adopting technologies, how do you see India coming to the forefront and developing something of its own first, be it frugal or not? That's the second question. But coming up first and being the first ones to develop.
Thank you, Adarsh. I think I'm all for firsts, and a couple of examples. We started Digital India and I end up writing the comprehensive piece each year when we mark the anniversary. Lots of things are happening which the world is now sitting up and taking note. I don't think we're any longer second, or we're in a place where we're borrowing from the world or we're taking the template, though there is no harm even in doing that. If we can take something that somebody else has invented, like we often say, there's no point in reinventing the wheel. But very often those technologies are meant for European nations. They're often targeted at a white male European perspective. So often when I'm in the room, I talk about frameworks and I talk about starting from scratch. I also talk about bringing in very consciously the emerging economy, developing a country perspective. So when India did Mars, the reason why we were able to do it for 75 crores, and this is actually the cost that a lot of movies are made in Hollywood, whether it's The Martian or whether it's the other series that they have done, is because we decided to break it down into parts. We did lesser tests. We were able to do it in a model where we could break down every single process, and we put that together with great precision. That means there is great intelligence that exists. How can we do that better? That's where, because I've been a teacher and I've done roles across the corporate world. I taught for 5 years at LSR. We worked very, very extensively understanding the new education policy 2020 as well. Delhi University created something called the Cluster Innovation Program, which is where we were teaching people how to think cross-functionally, how to think by breaking down silos. The moment you have, and that's the purpose of any university in the country, you teach people how to think from a research mindset, how to think from a hypothesis mindset. When you do a PhD, it's not about how wide your research interest is. It is about delimiting. Can you ask a very sharp research question, break it down, and come up with an analysis that's going to contribute to the discipline, contribute to the industry, contribute for the betterment of the nation? That will happen when the quality of research starts increasing. That will happen when you're teaching students, and that was our focus, that you will not just teach students the syllabus that exists as of today, because by the time they pass out, the syllabus may be obsolete. The speed of change in technology is so high, especially AI. We're all trying to keep up. It's like this one large treadmill where everyone's just trying to stay on course. And that's where, if you're teaching your students, the World Economic Forum just published, and they do this every January, the Future of Work and Future of Jobs report. They're talking about analysis, they're talking about analytical thinking abilities, they're talking about transferable skill sets, they're talking about interpersonal skill sets, the ability to take a lot of different aspects, a lot of different extraneous factors, and then to make meaning out of that. And that is what we need to consciously inculcate in universities of today, where every department is speaking to another department. You could be a biology major, and I think you would relate to this really hard. You've done forensics and you're sitting here and doing a conversation today. That's when you create a worldview. So how do I take a problem statement that's relevant? So one, India is no longer second, because couple of things happened. We had something called the National Optic Fiber Cable Network. Back in 2013, it was to get completed. It was nowhere near completion. When 2014 happened, it was renamed as the BharatNet project, which is connecting all 600,000 villages in India, 250,000 village panchayats through high-speed fiber cable network. It's supposed to terminate in common service centers or CSCs, which exist in every village. If you can build services on top, and those centers where you would normally get for your Aadhaar card, or you would go there for a death or a birth certificate, they become centers which are, let's say, centers or chopals or village squares where conversations are happening, so that technology becomes organic. And that's where programs like the Lakpati Didi, the mission where there are women and young girls who are staying back in the villages are interacting with drone technology. We today are lucky because we have one of the youngest demographic dividend populations, which are younger, where a lot of other countries are aging today. And these are all digital natives. They're better at cell phones than you and me, and certainly our parents' generation. So if it's second nature to question, to be curious, to build this, if you give us the infrastructure, and with the JAM Trinity, which is Jan Dhan, Mobile and Aadhaar, you have connected a lot of dots. Another watershed moment was the launch of Jio, which brought down the data prices in the country. So while we are currently consuming a lot of entertainment, if you are able to see these technologies with the India stack, which is UPI, every large government today is looking at India for answers. And India is looking at learning from everyone, but creating our own solutions. That's why the India AI mission, which is currently led by Abhishek Singh, is doing phenomenal work on a trusted and safe AI. And I think nobody else is better positioned. So we have created 3 frameworks, which are the first frameworks to have come out of the Global South. It's called OPAI, which is talking about a safe framework for consumers. We have created a Guardian framework that we launched on World Consumer Awareness Day with Minister Piyush Goyal in Mumbai. And that is talking about safeguarding consumers, as well as giving options for companies to create regulatory sandboxes and come up with innovative solutions. Then we created something called the FIST, and we launched that under the US-India CEO Forum. It's the first framework on safety, security and standards to have come out of the Global South. All of this is getting a lot of reception across the world, from academia, from civil society, from other partners. We've partnered with Tata Sons and MasterCard at InMobi. We've launched this as part of the Nihit framework. So I'm very happy to share with your viewers and whoever's connected with this platform that India is no longer a distant second. We're innovating, we're engaging with technology, we're in the right room, we have a seat at the table. And that's where a lot more of us are required to be in the room. When Indian delegations go, we should be there in large numbers, so that we're asking questions, we're engaging, and we're contributing solutions. So I think it's really the best time to be at the intersection of technology and policy making. Thank you.
So I think I would like to echo the statement when you said that, technologies are evolving by the day. And I think you really rightly pointed out that India is no longer, the distant second, but we are innovating. And some good examples could be UPI, the DPIs that we have, Aadhaar framework. I think a lot of other governments are looking ahead to us for certain answers, that how come we are able to serve such a huge population with such a digital, public infrastructure. So I think that's been an amazing feat by the government of India, and of course the collaboration with the private sector. InMobi has also played a good enough role with those platforms. So coming back to InMobi's role, we recently, I think in the last year 2024, you guys collaborated with the Data Security Council of India. So firstly, I want to know what about that, and what's about that partnership. What are you looking forward to with that partnership? Secondly, how do you see the threat landscape of India has, further complicated, and is it evolving with with every passing day?
Adarsh, thank you. And I think all companies in the world must realize that there is no one individual who's the silver bullet today. DSCI has been remarkable. Their CEO, Vinay Godse, is someone I've known for over a decade now, from growing within the system to ensuring that we're there together at a lot of platforms. They're an autonomous body that's part of NASSCOM. Why InMobi decided to collaborate with DSCI as well as the Cyber Peace Council Foundation. We did this work because we wanted to make sure we're able to collaborate with civil society, empower them, take messaging, look at research that has come out over the decades to look at not just threat landscapes, but our youth. So there are two things which are at stake. One is, what is the kind of internet that you want to shape today? Is it going to be inclusive? Is it going to be a safe space for women? Who are we leaving behind? Our grandparents, our parents, people who may be hesitating with their debit cards at the ATM. It's usually a "Suno beta, can you help out?" Or there are other people who may be saying, "Hey, I don't want to get a debit card because there's a fraud." We have to ensure that you're lending a helping hand and you're telling them, you're educating them. It's like saying, I want everybody to come out on the streets, to navigate, to be out, to experience what India is building, both in terms of the fantastic infrastructure physically, which is where you have the best roads, you have highways, you're sitting in Delhi, you're in Noida, some of the best facilities that exist. The same thing is replicable online. When the internet being a large superhighway, if you cannot navigate it safely, so the metro, when you get out, and that's what I used to tell my LSR girls, your feeder bus is important. Equally important is the street light on the road that connects the metro station to the LSR gate. And that's where these learnings enabled us to create best practice forums which would keep women safe online. And that's where partnership with reliable, trusted partners like DSCI, who've spent a lot of time training and championing young women who are coming online. So there's a lot of experience that we could benefit from, creating small comic books which are helping young users understand complex worlds. So something as basic as stop, think, connect. Or when you cross the road, you look left, you look right, and then only you cross the road. The Prime Minister, I'm so happy, he took that campaign and he talked about stop, think, and then act. And these are the kind of things that, these simple rules that help you navigate the internet better, that help you make it into a safe space. So all of us need to be great corporate citizens. Therefore, partnering with them means doing workshops in tier 2, tier 3 cities where these messaging may have not reached. We are doing a teaching the trainer program with the youth ministry, where teachers, school principals, even RWAs would be impacted, saying we don't have to be scared just because if you left the road or your house in your car and somebody brushed past you, आप गाड़ी चलाना नहीं छोड़ेंगे. So, which is why it's important to be a great driver, to be a good corporate citizen, and people for the first time are experiencing that children know more than their parents. When it comes to online structures, the structures of socialization have been inverted today. If you're able to create that young girl or that young boy who can go talk to their parents, their grandparents, saying if somebody calls you, you don't give the OTP. It's something as basic as that. You'd be amazed to know, Adarsh, India is one of the highest targeted countries today. Our very large infrastructure has on occasion been impacted. We remember the AIMS incident that happened, certain airports. So On an average, you're getting 1,500 targeted threats at critical infrastructure. Some of them are state actors, some of them are non-state actors, and a lot of, almost 80% of these threats can be traced back to human error. It's not just India. The famous Stuxnet incident that happened, where they were able to blow up a nuclear reactor, for 2 years, people kept leaving pen drives around the facility, and one day someone decided to pick it up and plug it in the system. When, that's why what we're trying to do is empower our citizens, and that's when we truly work with them, you will be able to convert what may have been the weakest link in the chain to your strongest asset, and they can all then be champions. And that's why this partnership with DSCI and Cyber Peace is about empowering every single citizen in the country so that they become cyber warriors and champions for our country.
Subi, it's very amazing, the way how InMobi is trying to bridge the divide, the information divide among the people who are the grassroots and the people on the metros. Also, the divide that's there between the ages, right? I just said that there's a varied demography. We have a young demography which is more active on the digital fronts, whereas our parents or the grandparents, they are not. They are a little hesitant. You share very interesting example of that, the debit card thing. That okay. Help kar do beta. That was a very good take. And another interesting analogy which you shared, that was about the street light. That that street light is very important when it comes to it. It contributes to the women's safety. Similarly, we need to have a safe and hygienic digital environments for women and for everyone. It should be inclusive. Now, this conversation has been very wonderful and very informative, to be very honest, for me too. And now I come to the last question of this interview. So I'd like to know, what are your key focus areas when you in terms of India as a market? What are your key focus areas of growth in the coming year ahead?
Thank you, Adarsh. I think, like I said, it's one of the best times to be in India. You have new users who are coming online. You have new markets which are opening up. It is when we decided to create InMobi, we have 4 founders, and Naveen, in 2011, we became a unicorn under Naveen's leadership. He's our CEO and he's our founder, and he's someone who's grown up in Kanpur, on the IIT Kanpur campus. His grandmother was one of the first professors who taught mathematics across any of the IITs. So that background where you have strong leadership, and his father again was the Dean of Electrical Engineering, one of the most well-loved professors, Professor Sachidanand Tiwari. There's a very strong emphasis on building in India so that we are able to create technology platforms and consumer technology platforms that are competing with the best across the world, whether it's large US tech companies, and therefore we partner with them. There are allies and friends. We also compete with them. There's healthy competition. There also are investors. So our second unicorn is Glance, and that was created in 2019. And within 2 years, it became a unicorn. Google's an investor, so is Jio. With these synergies, we are unlocking some of the largest distribution networks. So we're currently on over 400 million devices, more than 200 million users in India. Unlike any other application, we are not an app. We come with the software. We're in the phone, and therefore our user on an average would press the power button about 120 times. So you're looking at Glance, which means that as a platform, not only are we using it as something for business and for profit, we're also partnering very actively with very large ministries, whether it's the Election Commission through our Glance for Good and InMobi for Good programs. We are working to make sure that probably every section of society, whether they're in the metros or they're in tier 2, tier 3 cities, their aspirations are met. We become their window to the world where new information is at the tip of their fingertips without having to spend a lot of money on data. This is a very light version. It does not consume data. These sectors across 18 different categories, science and technology, information, and we are creating, using AI, new experiences via the surface art, where you can assume personas, you can look at the world through how is it that you'd like to be projected or portrayed. So your shopping experience becomes better. We're creating a platform via Aroposo, which is also something that we own. They have drop shippers, and these drop shippers now are creating products from the safety and comfort of their homes. It could be a small housewife in Gujarat. It could be a young sneaker head who's making very cool sneakers in Himachal. And we're integrating them and we're helping them churn out numbers which are unheard of. So phenomenally, across information, across infotainment, across shopping, across learning new knowledge and information, that's the contribution that we're making. With so many devices, this makes us one of the largest distribution networks. And I think now sky is the limit, because to build a consumer platform with very strong partnerships and with very strong allies who are helping us unlock value across government ministries, government departments, as well as for the larger market, that kind of penetration is unheard of. So, which is why once you've built the road, everything and anything is possible. So, never a better time to be here, whether it's about using us as a medium and harnessing technology for good, or building solutions which make everyday life better, whether it's a user in Mumbai, Ghatkopar, or a young boy in Meerut. If you're making sure that they're clued in, I think information is truly power, and that is what we're doing, both with our DSP engine, which is our mothership InMobi as a company, as well as with Glance. That's our, I think it's our gift to the world that we are here, we built it here, and we've created it, and then it's unleashed a lot of power that people can harness to build real connections. That's really what InMobi and Glance are about.
Thanks, Subi. It was really amazing speaking with you, and thank you for all those knowledgeable insights that you've shared with us. Thank you for sparing time.
Thank you, Adarsh. Thank you so much, ET, for having me. Thank you.